is John Hansen W2FS, Mr. TNC-X.
Thank you, Stan. I appreciate the time. Can you hear me in the back of the room? Yeah. My mother always used to complain that I was too loud, but sometimes it comes in handy. My name is John Hansen. I am Coastal Chipworks, and we make two products that are probably of significance to you. One is TNC-X. I'll talk about that in a little more detail in a minute. The other is an interface that allows you to plug a standard PC keyboard into a D700 radio for text entry. Let me say what I have to say about that first and get it out of the way and we'll move on. As you know, Kenwood is replacing the D700 with a new radio. You can see it out in the Kenwood booth. It's the D710. It's my understanding that, and I don't want to be critical of Kenwood, who's basically buttering my bread here, but they somehow neglected to include a keyboard interface in the new radio. It came as a bit of a surprise to me, but from my point of view, a pleasant surprise. The current keyboard interfaces for the D700 will not work on this new radio, but there will be a new designed interface that I expect to be available about the same time that the D700 is. I mean, the D710 is. So you should be able to pick up an interface that will allow you to plug a keyboard into that as well, either when the radio is introduced or very shortly thereafter. So I'm looking forward to that. Let me talk a little bit about a couple of changes with regard to TNC-X. TNC-X is a KISS mode TNC hardware. If you take a standard TNC and you put it in KISS mode, you've got TNC-X. The idea was that you don't pay for all the additional features that you usually don't use with a TNC anyway, and as a result, the standard price for TNC-X is only $48. We have a special at the show here where you can get that TNC-X plus the fancy metal enclosure for it for $60, including tax. That is a show special booth. I think it's 223, which is out here. It has a USB connector, I guess is the other thing I wanted to mention. A USB option is available for an additional $20. Well, anyway, that's the end of the commercial. I really want to go on and talk about a couple of other things that aren't things that my company specifically does, but they're related. One of them is a product from a company called Painter Engineering in Colorado. One of the key things about TNC-X, the design from the beginning was intended to be expandable. That's what the X in TNC-X stands for. And there is a header in TNC-X that allows people to develop daughter boards and plug them in to add functionality to it. I make a daughter board called X-Digi, for example, which basically converts TNC-X into a UI-Digi APRS digipeater. Company in Colorado has made an add-on board that comes in two flavors to do two different kinds of things. One is a really, really smart digipeater. It has its own command language that you can configure it with, and you can specify, for example, that you only want to digipede packets during rush hour that come from between 0 and 15 degrees on the compass rose. And say from a distance of more than 5 miles away, but less than 20 miles away. It gets to that level of specificity. So there's very little that you would want to do in terms of controlling what you're digipeding and what you're not digipeding that you can't do with Micro Smart Digi. It does consume a fair amount of power because it's based upon microchips. DS PIC processor, but it certainly gives you a lot of functionality in return. They've been selling very well, and unfortunately he sold out of his first run. He did give me two to sell at the show that I have available, so if you decide you want that kind of functionality, you probably ought to drop by soon. There's supposed to be two more en route that I thought were coming in the mail yesterday. I'm still hoping they're coming in the mail today, so there's a limited number of those available. This is not a Coastal Chipworks product, but again, the original design was so other people could develop things that could be put in TNC-X to expand its functionality. There's a couple of other things I wanted to mention. I've been following the development that surrounds the AGWPE, the packet engine out of the fellow in Europe, and there's some new application software that really I think is quite interesting. If you're into emergency communications and you're trying to use Winlink, that's the program, or suite of programs rather, that lets you take an email client and address email and have it then go out over the air and show up in somebody else's email box. Or alternatively, it allows you to send email over the internet to these stations, I believe. Up until this point, the server side of this, as I understand it, and again, I'm talking about somebody else's work here, a program called Telpac did support KISS mode, and as a result, I know the people that were doing this in Texas, TNC-X was the only TNC that they were recommending for that particular application. However, on the client end, people were using a program called Airmail, and that is still available, and at least up until a few months ago, that did not support KISS mode, and so wasn't usable with TNC-X, leading you to buy a substantially more expensive piece of hardware if that was the functionality you were looking for. Now, fortunately, there's now been software developed that runs under the AGWPE packet engine that will do exactly the same thing. And if you go to the TNC-X webpage, that's www.tnc-x.com, there is a link to an article I wrote on how to use, where to go get these pieces of software, how to put them on your computer and get them talking to each other so that you can use AGWPE with TNC-X and use these programs or a wide range of other programs that are available under the AGWPE engine. So the bottom line is TNC-X now does Winlink. And not thanks to me, but thanks to the people that are writing this software. So if you're looking to add that functionality to your emergency communications setup, there's probably no cheaper way to do that than to use this with TNC-X. The last item I wanted to mention today is there is, of course, a standard, not a digipeater on steroids, X-Digi, which is a really, really low-cost, low-power digipeater application. The combination of the X-Digi board and TNC-X consume around 20 milliamps. I've been running one in the booth now all day yesterday, all day today. I'll be running it all day tomorrow on a 9-volt battery, and it will not, it won't use up the 9-volt battery over that period. In fact, I've got it running with a VX2 handheld, which makes it just an extremely small little digipeater. This summer, I'm going to go back and revisit that code. So there will be new X-Digi code available, I'm not sure when, late summer, early fall. X-Digi was originally designed to be flash upgradable, so that if you're an X-Digi user, you will be able to upgrade your code to the new version without sending it in, without buying anything. It'll be available on my website, and you'll simply connect a serial connector to it, and you'll be able to upgrade it to the new code. There's been some discussion on the X-Digi news group on Yahoo about things that might be put in the next version of X-Digi, perhaps including remote configuration. If you have ideas on that, now is the time to email me, because now is the time I'm going to go to work on the project. So if I hear from you in 3 months, it really is too late. I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank Stan for the use of the microphone. I've got 1 minute roughly. If there are any burning questions, other than that, I'll be at the booth, 223. Okay. Thank you.